From Florida to Moscow, high-stakes diplomacy unfolds as U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner arrive in Russia to present a revised Trump peace plan for Ukraine. With Kyiv still fighting fiercely in Pokrovsk and Europe sidelined, the world watches. Is this a genuine path to peace or a pressure tactic to lock in Russian gains? Zelensky, fresh from talks in Ireland, insists no land will be ceded, while Putin demands full surrender of annexed regions. As Witkoff meets the Kremlin, the question echoes, will this end the war or redraw Europe's security order on Russia's terms? Welcome to In Depth. The Washington Post has reported that the United States, under President Trump, has launched a decisive diplomatic push to end the nearly 4-year conflict in Ukraine. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, accompanied by Jared Kushner, is currently in Moscow presenting an embryotic peace proposal directed to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Simultaneously, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on a crucial European tour across nations like Ireland and France. His objective is to solidify sustained support from partners and ensure European voices are not bypassed in these high-stakes parallel negotiations. Yet the path to a genuine resolution remains formidable. Fundamental disagreements persist over Ukraine's territorial integrity and its long-term security framework, making any quick breakthrough highly unlikely without significant compromises from all sides. Russian President Vladimir Putin has celebrated what he claims as the total capture of the city of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine, calling it a significant victory and saying it will help achieve Russia's goals in the war. But as El Mundo Americas reports, Ukraine is pushing back. Ukraine's military says fighting is still underway, insisting Russian troops have not taken the city. Kyiv also says its forces hold the northern part of Pokrovsk and continue to defend nearby Mironogorod while opening new routes for evacuations and supplies. Meanwhile, Washington is stepping up its push for a peace deal. Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner are meeting in Moscow with Putin today, and the Kremlin's economic envoy Kirill Dmitriev has called their arrival an important day for peace ahead of talks on the U.S. proposal announced 2 weeks ago. Despite Putin's declaration of victory, the news outlets adds that Ukrainian units report ongoing combat in Pokrovsk, including strikes on Russian-held areas in the south of the city.
High-stakes diplomacy is ramping up in Moscow tonight. The White House says it is very optimistic as U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff prepares for a crucial face-to-face meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in a bid to chart a path toward ending the Russia-Ukraine war. The meeting follows an intense weekend of closed-door negotiations in Florida. Witkoff, joined by top U.S. officials, including Jared Kushner and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, met with the Ukrainian delegation to revise the Trump administration's earlier peace proposal. Officials said the talks were productive, though difficult issues remain. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt echoed that upbeat mood Monday, telling reporters the administration feels very optimistic after what she described as very good talks with the Ukrainians. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been rallying European support. After meeting with the French President Emmanuel Macron in Paris, he arrived in Dublin today for talks with Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin. Zelensky was not directly involved in the Florida sessions, but received constant updates, noting that several tough issues are still unresolved, chief among them, Ukraine's territorial integrity. He reaffirmed that maintaining sovereignty is non-negotiable, calling the territorial question the most difficult part of any agreement. Russia continues to press for Ukraine to cede eastern regions it still controls, something Kiev insists it will never accept. Adding pressure, Russia claims to have captured the strategic towns of Pokrovsk and Vovchansk just hours before Witkov's arrival in Moscow. As negotiations begin, the world watches to see whether this moment becomes a breakthrough or another turn in a grinding war.
And to provide more analysis, joining us from Moscow, Mr. Vincent Ligorio, Head of Geopolitical Department at Atlantica Center, and from Washington, Ambassador Patrick Thuros, former American diplomat. Welcome to In Depth. Mr. Ligorio, does the simultaneous timing of Russia's Pokrovsk capture claims and the Witkoff meeting signify a Kremlin strategy to diplomatically precondition the talks by asserting military leverage?
Good afternoon, first of all, Rana. I think that more than diplomatically, signifying diplomatically this process is pragmatically fixing this process, because we know that Russia has the idea that we'll have to continue this twofold strategy of advancing on the ground and opening the door to the process of negotiation with the United States. So I think that this is a mostly pragmatic step rather than a real, let me say, a real stage of diplomacy.
Ambassador Thuros, what concrete outcomes does the United States hope to see from today's meeting in Moscow?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I imagine that they are looking for some signs of some flexibility on the Russian demand on the two key issues that most affect Ukraine, which are the territorial demands for the entire province of Luhansk and Donbass, and for the limitations on the Ukrainian armed forces. Those seem to me to be the most difficult to overcome. So Mr. Witkoff will be pressing Putin to see if there is any give or flexibility on those two demands. Right now, if I were betting, I would bet that Putin will not agree at all on the territorial demands, but may be able to make some give on the strength of the Ukrainian military. But who knows?
Sir, if Putin sees that he is on the ground winning, actually, and taking Pokrovsk, then on the ground he will not give any, by any ways, he's not going to give any, why is he going to give anything?
I personally don't believe that he will give anything on terms of the ground, on terms of the boundaries, the new boundaries, the demand for the surrender of the entire province. He may be willing to allow for some variations or other modifications on the military, because the differences between one and the other really are not that great. Between 600,000, which is the Russian demand, and if this is correct, the 800,000, which is the Ukrainian counter demand, you are still not creating a huge difference in Ukraine's ability to defend itself, particularly if it has large reserve forces that could be called up.
Mr. Legorio, if Russia eventually takes Pokrovsk, how could that reshape the dynamics of the war in Donetsk? And what is your comment on what the ambassador just said now?
Thank you for the question. I completely agree with the ambassador, especially with what is going on currently on the ground. Russia will not open a window, let me say, of negotiation regarding the concession of any territory nowadays. And if it will be confirmed in the next hours or even tomorrow in the next days, the full occupation of Pokrovsk, well, this will open a new scenario into the, let me say, full control of the region, because Pokrovsk is, despite it's a small village, is quite symbolic in terms of control of the logistic of the advancement of the Russian army. And yes, I agree that the only window that Russia would open would be, let me say, in terms of numbers of Ukrainian army, the numbers from 1650 to 800,000 won't change, let me say, a future eventual repumping of the conflicts. Russia, on the other side, will ask different guarantee to the US.
Okay, Mr. Vincent, still with you. Zelensky is not ceding to victory, and on the other hand, Russian President Vladimir Putin sees that he's on stable grounds. He's the upper hand in these negotiations. How will this reach a compromise to end this 4-year war at the end?
Well, I think that we have two different views, yeah? So we have the Ukrainian views that has an internal turmoil and a military gap on the ground. So with the increasing pressure from diplomacy, especially from the US, and ground pressure from Russia, Ukraine is trying to find the best offer, yeah, for now, because I think also politically Zelensky is under pressure, especially with the Yemark issue, and of course after the inspection of on the ground of the last days of Vladimir Putin and the report from General Gerasimov, Putin see that his potential, his purchase power on this negotiation is increasingly growing. So I think that the balance is spending more favorably towards Russia. Yes. At least in theory, yeah. And I see that the inclusion of what is called the controversial Kushner, Jared Kushner, I think is also a way to guarantee more Putin on certain things, like direct involvement of Trump in the negotiation. So Trump is trying to, let me say, level a bit this purchase power, not to give too much to Putin. Yeah, is very important for that.
Ambassador Theros, can a peace plan that might exclude Europe succeed when Brussels funds half of Ukraine's war efforts and future reconstruction?
In a rational world, it cannot succeed.
It cannot succeed in a rational world.
In a rational world. In a rational world, the Europeans must know that defeat in Ukraine, a peace that ends up as a Ukrainian defeat and exposes Europe to further hostilities down the line, with what appear, and let me clarify that, such a defeat could only come for the Ukrainians if the United States, if President Trump basically tells the Ukrainians it's a bad deal or no deal. If you're that would be an indication to Europeans that in the future they could not count on American assistance should something else go on.
And do you read, sir, that they can count on American systems now?
Yes, I think they can. I think right now the pressure in the United States on President Trump, even if he doesn't want to, domestically, it would be very difficult for President Trump, even within his own political party and even with his biggest supporters, to walk away from an Article 5 obligation. Once, if Ukraine falls, if Ukraine becomes ultimately a puppet of Moscow, I think you will see eroding support in the United States in general for America's commitment to Europe, and these are all psychological. They're not. I'm not saying that this is the way it will be in a formal way, but psychologically, if Trump is succeeded by another president with the same mindset in terms of a departure from Europe, Europe could be in.
So, sir, is the core of the issue that Trump wants Ukraine to get out of the core of Europe, or is Zelensky working on European countries like France and other countries that he's visiting now, actually on the ground as we talk, or is U.S. President Donald Trump supporting Zelensky at this point? Because we all know that he has, of course, closed doors talks with President Vladimir Putin, but we don't know much about these talks and they're not revealed. However, there are sanctions that Donald Trump apply on Russia. How do you read this complicated situation, sir?
The only way that Russia can be brought to heel, that Putin may decide that he needs to accept less than what he's demanding, depends more on the United States than on Europe at this moment. One is actually applying the sanctions that have been threatened, and the provision of significant new weaponry, particularly long-range weaponry to Ukraine, is the only way that Putin might be forced back. His advance might be stopped. So that
what is the only way that might stop Putin, sir?
Is real American application of the sanctions. At the moment, we've announced sanctions, but there's a great deal of trade and commerce and movement of money going on. You can't violate the sanctions of a country, but in defiance of the sanctions, and we have not actually taken the concrete steps that would make the sanctions as painful as they could be. And also, it is not quite clear if we will provide Ukraine weapons they need to hurt Russia internally. Absent those two actions, Putin can probably believes that he can continue the war and will ultimately gain what he wants on the battlefield.
Sir, are you sure that he probably, or he's sure he can continue the war? Because he's Vladimir Putin.
I believe Vladimir Putin believes that.
So he believes
it. And in addition, his internal situation is such that I don't think he can tolerate a defeat. A defeat at the hands of Ukraine would be extremely difficult for Putin to manage internally.
Mr. Ligorio, with Ukraine denying full loss of Pokrovsk, is Russia using military momentum to dictate terms before talks even being?
Of course, it's definitely that, and we are discussing already several weeks. Because the momentum that Russia is gaining already is several weeks, if not month, and we're discussing already this already long time. Russia is sure that first of all, internally, Ukraine is going to get tired. The constantly turmoil that Ukraine has will decrease the willingness to fight. We see hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians eligible to fight that are fleeing the country and are not coming back. So yes, US and the EU can provide financial support and military support, but they cannot provide the human factor that will go to the front and to fight. So this is quite important, and Putin is refilling the front, is advancing, and is trying to show that well, we had mistake in the beginning, but now we are accomplishing let me say the remission and the revision of this what is called in Russia special military operation. So it's clear that what is going on the ground is reflecting the negotiation table.
Sir, what's going on the ground now, actually, as we talk, me and my distinguished guests, sir, is that Ukraine and Russia are in a war that did not stop. Ukraine is on one hand, and Russia is on another hand. They don't even meet to talk, sir. It didn't happen in the near future. And Russia, from the perspective of Vladimir Putin, is of course winning the game. Sir, which negotiating table are you talking about?
Well, the negotiation is between just US and Russia.
Is this possible, sir? Is this possible in history? When there are three countries, when there are two countries that are fighting together, and there's a war between them, and there's a mediator, there's one of the countries that's fighting is not on the negotiating table, is being held behind the negotiating table. How will they negotiate, sir?
Well, historically, it's not possible.
Historically, it's not possible.
Historically, it's not possible, but we have to face the reality. We have a new world order with the new rules of the game. Otherwise, this conflict never happened if we didn't have a new world order. Russia sees Ukraine as, let me say, a Trojan horse of the United States and the EU. Russia doesn't recognize in this negotiation table Ukraine as an actor to negotiate. This is I think that we have to read the Russian perspective. That's why I'm a Russian policy expert, yeah, because I have the tools and the ability, together with my colleagues, to read the Russian perspective. We have to read the Russian perspective in this sense. America realized that especially Trump, realized that if he wants to end this conflict, has to tap into the vision that Vladimir Putin has. What is not going, for example, EU, because there are different philosophical things. I'm European myself, and from my, if I take off the hat of an expert and an analyst, of course, I would, let me say, see with the European eyes. But Europe cannot accept this. That's why it is excluded from this negotiation path, and is pushing for certain things that Russia will never accept, and is pushing that without Ukraine.
Do you see that Russia wants to accept anything, sir?
Of course, something will be accepted. Well, if we
think
that one day we must accept, because Russia has also internal issues that are connected with the economy Russia wants certain lifting of specific sanction, at least for the very beginning. And that's why Mr. Kasher is there, is to guarantee Putin that this is not a diplomatic thing. Do you see a diplomat? Do you see Mr. Lavrov here? No, you see Dmitriev, that is, let me say, an aide of Vladimir Putin and always has deal in business. You see Witkov and you see Kasher, people that made business. And look what's happened with the Abramo agreement that touched, directly even your region, yeah? It's got Kasher. It didn't see any other main actor that were diplomats. So this is the approach is the same. The world change, and unfortunately,
the approach, sir, is business from your narrative.
Of course, but look at the narrative. I think
so it's not politics. It's
my distinguished. Yes, I think that my distinguished.
Okay, I'll leave it here, sir, and I'll ask Mr. Ambassador Theros. After Florida talks, did Washington truly reconcile Ukraine's no-land stance with Russia's maximalist territorial demands?
It's the tough question to answer because I and probably most of us do not know what sort of pressures are going on inside Russia. We know a great deal about the pressures inside Ukraine.
So you nailed it, Mr. Theros, Ambassador Theros. Nobody knows what's going on with Russia.
That's correct. We know what's going on in Ukraine, and therefore we are more willing to talk about the Ukrainian response, Ukraine giving in. But we really don't know what's going on in Russia.
Okay. Can I ask you a question, sir, please?
Yes.
Why is, in the case of Ukraine, transparency is very, very high, and it's seen everywhere and well understood, while when it comes to Russia, there's no transparency at all?
It depends on the political system. In the Ukraine,
your fellow guest just mentioned now that the negotiations are more of business than of politics. How do you read this?
It is leadership talking without including their diplomats, and that is.
Then do you read that it's business, not politics?
It's a different style of politics. It is the type of politics that went on in medieval Europe between the various fiefdoms.
Okay, Your Excellency, how are we going to end this war if we continue like this?
If we continue like this, we will continue killing people, moving forward, moving back a few meters at a time.
Yes, President Donald Trump said
the Russians will be advancing. At some point, internal stresses in one country or the other will force a collapse of, say, the willingness to continue fighting, as happened to Germany, for example, in 1918, where the German army was actually winning battles on all its fronts. The German army stood on foreign territory, and then the German government suddenly surrendered because the internal politics had changed.
So you see that this is going to be the finale of Ukraine?
Or it could be even of Russia, depending on how much help is given Ukraine.
Russia with the existence of Vladimir Putin?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Ligorio, in 10 seconds, because I have to wrap up now. How do you read what His Excellency Ambassador Patrick Theros said now?
Well, I would say with what Russian keep saying. For Russia, it's more important not the destiny of the emperor, of the king, of the Tsar, but the destiny of the emperor. So, even if the leadership will change, Russia will continue to fight in order to preserve the Russian Federation.
That was Mr. Vincent Ligorio, head of geopolitical department at Analytica Center, and Ambassador Patrick Theros, former American diplomat. Thank you very much both for your special insights. your valuable discussion and your informative knowledge and time. As well as Moscow and Washington talk, Kiev fights and Europe watches. Will diplomacy end the war or simply cement the battlefield's verdict? The world awaits. This brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Thank you very much for joining us and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.